The three adventurers trudged into a cavern. A rancid smell assailed their noses. They wouldn't have entered if the ranger hadn't found the tracks. Yet there were more mixed in. Adam couldn't make heads or tails of the little footprints, but that was the ranger's job. He held them up as he read the markings, and he knew what made them instantly. Just as he was about to tell the others, the kobolds came rushing from the cavern. Welcome to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide, Jason. Today, we meet a creature which many of you think you know, but it has changed in the last few decades: the kobold. Many of you have crossed paths with a kobold in a fancy game like Dungeons and Dragons or Baldur's Gate, where the kobold is shown as a small lizard-like creature. Usually, the World of Warcraft variant was often found in and around mines. But that doesn't match the history behind it. Kobolds come from Germanic folklore. In the 13th century, they were a kind of wood or wax doll that people would have, but changed into a household spirit over the ages. These were similar to the Lares of Roman mythology, which helped to protect the home. The early kobold would help around the house, do chores, cleaning and whatnot, and be a bit mischievous, mostly just making noise. Nothing too serious, usually, but they did need coaxing to behave properly. And that came from leaving out food, milk, and sweets for them to eat. If they weren't bribed, they could be much more of a nuisance. Start knocking things over and playing pranks. And they are a close relative to the brownie or house goblin, what is called a house elf in the Harry Potter series. Though when they manifest as the noisy variant, they will often be called a poltergeist. Yet don't take their treats. There are a few examples of people stupid enough to do so. One little boy found himself chopped up and boiled in a pot. That would be a rather morbid sight to walk in on. To get them into your house, it will take some work to convince them to come to your side. But if you wish for them to leave, often all you need to do is give them clothing. Now, kobold is used to describe many other mythical creatures, including the seafaring Klabotoman, which will maintain the ship. Hopefully, I pronounced that right. Some names I do struggle with. Oh, and there are many names used for individual kobolds. Heinz, as well as Chim and variations. Their depictions vary just as much. Generally, they are said to be small and roughly human-shaped, with a beard and a little hat on. Yet, why are they tied to the mines? And we can thank the Brothers Grimm for that answer. Originally, there was another spirit called Kobold, which did live in the mine. It was also called Borgmanlin, or Bergmanchen, or Little Miner, or Mining Demon. It would seem that the famous Brothers Grimm blended the two. I can't tell if this was by accident or on purpose. The mine-living variant are heavily divided, with some being hostile and others helpful. One will dig you out of a cave-in, or dig on its own when out of sight. So, if you hear a pick in a mine while alone, it may be the kobold. But the evil one will steal your work and put a pickaxe in your back. Now, they are fairly powerful fellows. They are capable of shape-shifting. While they do have a true form, they can take on the guise of animals and appear as a small human. Generally, they are about 2 or 3 feet tall, 0.6 to 1 meters tall. They also have the power to turn invisible. So, You are probably wondering where the more reptilian form comes from. Well, that was a creation of the original creators of Dungeons & Dragons, Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, for their tabletop game. The Kobold was designed as an early encounter and low threat for players to best in their early adventures. These kobolds are aggressive and tribal that live in dark caverns. They are said to be closely related to dragons. Personally, I would say the Borgmanline variant is closer to the kobold we find in more modern fantasy series. As to why this variant was created, I would assume that it was created to offer more variety in the early encounters. Else, what would be the first foes? Goblins every time? Yeah, that would get boring pretty quickly. Mind you, if you want lizardmen, the Australian Aboriginal mythology has the Wati Kujara. Mind you, they had to work without the internet, so finding information can be difficult. Even with it, there is plenty of mythical creatures which are difficult to look up. With the two variations, we'll have to look at each separately. Let's start with the more traditional variant first, a generally helpful creature, which only becomes an issue when disrespected, when people are stealing its food and treats. One did butcher a kitchen boy, so they can be dangerous. Mind you, it sounds like it used the knives found in the kitchen to do so. Now, I would bet that it launched a surprise attack. Remember, they can shapeshift and turn invisible. One well-placed and decisive strike is all that it should take to bring down a human foe, which means you can't fall for that initial strike. Generally, they will be found in a house or a mine, so you can predict where the initial attack will come from. Maybe just outside the house, but not too far. You can lure it out by stealing its food and treats. They don't like to brawl. No, they'll rely on tricks and wear down your nerves. They'll wait until you go to sleep. So don't sleep alone. Have guards, a party with you. They'll try and shapeshift to hide, and you'll need to expose that. You'll need magic to pull it off, or a keen eye. Take your time. Yet you could ward off the kobold with the threat of clothes and insults. If done right, they'll just get up and leave. As for the more vile and reptilian villain, the fight is completely different. They will come in numbers, ambushing you on the road, pouring out of their cavern like a flood. They are a simple creature, and will use whatever weapons they can get their hands on, crude spears and clubs being the most likely. However, if they can bring down unlucky adventurers, they could steal their metal weapons, swords and axes. Normally, they don't have much in armor, but still, they may loot better equipment from humans. But due to their size, human armor will fit poorly, if at all. If they can get hobbit armor, that would fit better. You will also tower over them and surpass their strength by leaps and bounds. So, a bad mismatch for them. Their best chance is sheer numbers and reckless abandonment. You'll need to be prepared for that. Again, it is best that you have your own party. If they rush you, it is best to fall back and take a position which will limit their numbers. I'd prefer sweeping weapons, like a great sword or halberd. A spear and lunging attacks only go for one at a time. I also would recommend area of effect spells, like fireballs, to clear them out quickly. They are known for one weird strategy. 3 kobolds in a trench coat. One's on the bottom, strong as he. 2's in the middle, carrying 3. 3's pretending not to be 3 kobolds in a trench coat. It will usually fail miserably. You can handle this with a little care, but don't let them trick you. Mind you, it could make for a lot of laughs if you play along. Regardless of which variant of Kobold, I'm going to give them a 2 of 10 for difficulty. They lack much power. One is dependent on stealth, and the other on numbers. Good luck. Each version of the Kobold offers different rewards. The more traditional can be coaxed to enter your home. They will live in trees in the woods before picking a house. If you can find their tree, you are permitted to take a single clipping of the tree. Just don't damage the part which is their home. Leave an offering of milk and honey. You will probably need to do this sometime before they choose to follow you home. Though they have been known to take an immediate liking to a person. Once they come to your home, they'll help out. Cleaning and some cooking, but be sure to leave their offerings. If you do so, they will stay and keep helping. They may pull a few pranks and make some noises, but they are unlikely to cause trouble. And they are worth much more alive than dead. So much that it would benefit you to keep them alive and friendly. But the more reptilian one is a completely different story. They are much better to slay than leave alive. You can tan their hides to make leather goods, handbags and boots being great choices. You can also loot their cavern for their own spoils. This will be a mixed bag, but you might get lucky. Adam scattered flames at the horde that rushed them. The kobolds screamed in pain and toppled to the ground, one after another. Those who kept going were quickly ended by the ranger. With a deep breath, they dove into the cave as darkness spread around them. Only a small flame in Adam's hand guided them. The two variants of the kobold are pretty different, wouldn't you agree? One I would work with, and the other I would end swiftly. Thank you for watching, adventurers. Please return next time for the demon, Marcosius. Until then, I'll see you on the roads.